It was on North Market and Church Street, that corner.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So, I guess since we'll, keep going on this conversation. So job numbers came out this morning and I think the payrolls were up 114,000 and they're predicted 185,000, and unemployment went from, I could be wrong on this. I know it was 4.1, but I think it's either 4.3 or 4.4 now. So that's a pretty significant change for 1 month. So the stock market obviously did not like that, and Intel definitely didn't like that. So you're seeing layoffs happen. I mean, Intel laying off 15,000 jobs, and eventually when you think about it, it's like, okay, even if all those jobs were West Coast, you know what they do? They buy BMWs that are made in South Carolina. They fly on planes that are made in South Carolina in Charleston, right? So eventually layoffs will affect everybody in the country, and it's gonna, I think today's numbers probably assured us we're gonna get a rate change in September. And I even read an article, and again, this isn't coming from me, I'm just reading articles, but I read an article that now there's a 70% chance that they're predicting that the Fed will do a 50 basis point cut because of the numbers that came out today. Now I believe there might be one or two more job reports coming out between now and September 18th when the Fed talks, makes their decision, but those unemployment numbers, that's certainly something to watch what's happening, and the job growth. So,
Because that was like one thing they kept harping on, right? Like the Fed, as long as unemployment was low, they
yeah,
could.
well, it was a pretty big, and let me see if I can get that number. I know it was 4, but remember, unemployment was 3.4, right? And it went up and up and up, like, 0.1%, but 0.1% enough months in a row. And let's see what the number. I thought I read it was 4 point. So it says here, traders bet that the Federal Reserve will start easing policy in September with a big 0.5 percentage point interest rate cut versus what was seen before the report as 70% chance of the quarter point. So there's some action going on that now they're saying it could be 0.5%. So yeah, and they're saying unemployment increased to 4.3%. Well, last month it was 4.1.
Mhm.
So 0.2% increase in 1 month on unemployment is pretty significant, right? So watch those. I mean, I don't know exactly when the next meeting is, or when the next unemployment numbers come out, but that's something to watch the next time that comes out, because, and the 10-year Treasury was down to like 3.83. So it'll be very interesting to see what mortgage rates are doing right now. But it's the lowest before this news came out. It was the lowest it's been since February. So there's definitely some pressure on the economy and rates and everything. So we'll see what that does to mortgage rates over time.
Can I ask a really possibly naive question?
Sure.
I see these and I hear these reports and stuff. How is it possible that jobs are added every month? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, no, so it's not a net. There was 114,000, people added. So remember, unemployment went up, right? So the 114,000 was new jobs, so new hires.
Okay.
But if unemployment went to 4.3%, what happened? We lost probably 300,000 jobs.
Okay.
Right. So and I don't know why they report it that way, but as non-farm payrolls were up 114,000, but unemployment is up to 4.3%. So
But that could be farm jobs in the unemployment, though. It could have been summertime jobs as well.
yeah, and again, I'm not an economist. I don't know
Right,
how.
you know what I'm saying? Like, I never understood, that doesn't make sense to me, because summertime, there are going to be more jobs because kids are out of school, and there are some jobs that are summertime only.
Right.
So those jobs at the beginning of summer will be hired, but now people are going back to school and certain jobs are not going to be, like, lifeguards and pool people and camps and so, so that could also be that's why it doesn't really make sense to me.
Well, and so if we dive into the numbers, so here we are on median price, right? this median price, so again, and I've stated this before, look at May 2022, we peaked out at 425. May of 2023, we were 420. Basically, we're at 427, 735, which is an all-time high.
Right.
But I mean, really, we're kind of at that 425 range. So that's 3 years in a row, we're peaking out at 425. So
Right.
there's a lot of sideways action over, and again, this is all of MLS, right? So I'm not saying a specific house, but the market as a whole is showing just a flat line in pricing. Now, sure, if you look at exactly from last July, we're up 5.8%, right?
Right.
So is 5.8% accurate or is flat accurate? Right? I mean, in my opinion, it's like you start getting rid of seasonality. So if you do the rolling 12 months and we get rid of seasonality, huge run up, until interest rates really peaked out, and then kind of a sideways movement. We're definitely drifting higher, right? It's 3.8%, so we're drifting higher. But I can pull out specific houses that would sell for lower now than they would 3 months ago, right? So this is the market as a whole, but you really got to look at a house specifically at this point, and what's happening in that neighborhood and in that area and at that price point, because I definitely see sales that are happening at lower values. And again, here's median price. So if we break out, I wish there was a better way to do this. So look at new construction. So if we zoom out to new construction again, and let's get rid of all their gyrations in new construction. So you can see, as we pointed out before, they were at 443. And now they're down to 407, but it looks like they've kind of formed a base. So it's off 6.8% on new construction. Does that mean a new house went down 6.8%? No, I think what it means is builders decided to build less expensive houses, right? Because of higher rates and affordability, they planned this. So don't read this as house prices went down, read this as builders building less expensive houses. And it looks like with this very flat, because this gets rid of seasonality, right? The 12 months. So it looks like they've kind of found maybe the happy spot for them to build enough houses at these rates. Now, what's interesting is that's new construction. Let's flip it back to previously owned. So if we look at previously owned, look at that, 9.1%. You're like, wow. And that's a 12-month rolling average. Monthly, it's 9%. So it's so hard to read this market because we flatlined on resales for a while, but 9.1% is pretty aggressive growth. Now, again, does that mean every house went up 9.1%? No. I think a lot of this, to be honest, is a lot of renovations, right? Because think about when somebody takes a house that's $250 and they do a lot of work to it and they sell it for $425. That's reflected in this number, but the same house is a different house. They put all the money into it. So I think you have to be careful to say, the resale market's going up 9.1%, because it certainly doesn't in my world. I think a lot of this is the money being poured into houses on renovating. So let's go back and do all property types again, all construction types. So that's median price. Again, I think we're probably peaking out for our summer. We'll probably go down from here. But we're kind of in this range that we are we have been since basically 2022. And the price per square foot, we're up 5.5%. And this is kind of something I want to point out too, is if you look at the new construction, so new construction's off 6%, right? So they're either getting more square footage, they're giving you less options, they're doing 3-tab shingles instead of architectural shingles, they're doing cheaper appliances, so they're trying to get their prices down per square foot. And then you look at resales, 12%, right? And again, I think a lot of this is the renovation happening, all that money being poured into houses, it's showing up in that price per square foot. Let's go back to all construction types again. And if we look at this and We go to percent of original price. Now, this is interesting here. So these are all, everything combined, right? So COVID, we're hanging around 100% on median, right? It's like half the houses were selling above 100, half below. And then we dropped off the face when interest rates jumped and we went to winter. Then January 1st, what did we do? We jumped back up to summer of 2023. We fall back to winter. We jump back up to summer, but notice our peak was a lot lower than last year's peak, right? So we were consistently 100, we touched 100, we touched 98.8, right? So what's that telling us? That's telling us buyers are gaining control and being able to negotiate more. Now, keep in mind, this is the median, right? So half are above this, half are below. If you look at the average, so the average is 96.5. So that's showing that people are definitely discounting. I mean, look at the average was 101.2, right? So 101.2 to 96.5, that's 5% in negotiating that has gone to the buyer side over the past 2 years.
What happened January 2023 that it was so, I don't remember it being that.
This was the drive up in rates, right? The increase, the quick increase in
Oh,
rate
right. Yeah.
drove this from 101 to 95, right? So this was, and then everybody figured out, oh, well, this is the rate. So we've been living in this world.
Right.
But, you know, this is showing buyers gaining negotiability. Days on market. So days on market, and let's go back here real quick. So one thing I wanted to look at was if I go to previously owned. So previously owned on, you know, where we're at with, so we're at 98% on previously owned, but if you go to the average, you know, we're 96.3. So again, we're still going to where buyers are gaining some of this leverage back in this market, a lot of this leverage in some places. If we go to days on market, so days on market, right? We were at 3 for most of 2021 and 2022.
Yep.
We shot up when the rates went up, right? Well, this is just not rates. This is rates and season, right?
Yeah.
Shot up from 3 to 25, back down to 7, up to 19. Now, again, this is very interesting to note. We're 143% more than a year ago. So this July, we're 17 days on the market. Last July, we were 7. And I know historically, if we go back, 7 is still amazing. And 17 is amazing, right? All those numbers are amazing. But it's headed higher, right? It's definitely headed higher. And I think what you're going to see, you know, this is the whole history, right? And remember, all these years around the recession, right? We were 80 days a lot of times, 90 days. It took 3 months, right? You might need a year listing agreement. Right. And I mean, it sounds funny, but that's where we were at.
Yeah.
And I tell, and again, we're not in a recession for housing. You know, it's the recession in the economy now after the last couple of days, like, I think that's at risk again, right? When you look at the job losses and the lack of job growth, I think the economy as a whole is a risk in recession, but housing is not in a recession at the moment. But look at all these years, we were sitting for 60, 90 days. And normal years, it still was in the 30 range, right? So 2014, 15 to 19, 30 days was normal. 3 is not normal, right? So don't kind of, we're past those days where you list on Thursday and you pick your best offer on Monday. It's over.
Yeah.
So not to say houses can't get an offer quickly, but that's not the norm anymore.
I remember something. I've been licensed for 25 years, and I remember an offer I got once. I had a condo on the market. I had it on for like 2 days. I came to the office because in those days, you know, we didn't have smartphones, and I had my computer and I had an offer in my email. I remember literally hitting the floor on my knees because I was so shocked. It was on the market for 2 days and I got an offer.
That was not right. That was unusual back then.
I was thrilled, you know, so yeah.
So, you know, we're headed higher on days on market. You know, if you project out 143% and you start talking about in the winter, it could be 30 to 60 days to sell houses here in the next few months. Right? So prepare your sellers and don't let them kind of pick out their neighbor who sold in 2022 and a weekend and say, well, my neighbor sold in a weekend. It's like, yeah, that was a different time. So watch the days on market because it's starting to go up. Look at the average days on market, 36. Right? So that means there's some houses on the market a long time. Months of supply up 42%. Right? So that's a pretty 2.7 is great, but that's a significant jump from a year ago. Right? If we go to last July, we're at 1.9. So both those numbers are really low, but which way is it headed? Definitely headed higher. Right? Look at that trend. And then if you look at what builders are doing, so here's new construction. Right? So they're at 2.7. They got a little out of control right here, right? They had a little bit too much inventory for their liking. And again, rate driven, right? Rates go up. Look at the builders. When the rates went up, they went from 1.1 months to 3.7. And they are like, uh-oh, right about here, you know, because honestly, probably a lot of the management positions in construction right now, they were on the ground in the recession and they remember what happened, right? So I think you had a lot of these big builders kind of slow down construction right about here and bring it back in line. And then they've kind of, they're building as they know they can sell, right? That's, I think, what they're doing it looks like they're doing a good job of like, okay, we're only going to build what we know we can sell.
Yeah.
And they've kind of got it under control. And if we flip back, let's flip back to previously owned here. So if we go to previously owned, look at us, 59%. And which direction is this headed? You know, builders look like they have it under control. Resales, we were going from 0.6 to 2.7. Right? So we're getting close to 5 times as slow on absorption as we were, you know, in the beginning of 2022. And you can feel it, right? I mean, we can all feel it. Homes for sale. Well, let me go back to do all construction. So if we do all construction and homes for sale. So here we are, and this morning we're at 4033 I saw. So we're over 4,000, up 45% from a year ago. Now, again, I say it every time. I don't know where Market Monitor gets all their numbers from, but my calendar in my office shows we're up 65% from a year ago. Right? The ones that I track daily, we're up 65%. And from the low, so they have 1296. My calendar low was 928. So
Wow.
we've gone from, let's just to be easy with your sellers, we've gone from 1,000 for sale to 4,000 for sale. How many more choices for buyers? 4 times the options, right? And guess what it's going to be next year? 5 to 6 times the options, right? There's no way. I mean, there's no way we're not going to be at 5,000, 5,500, 6,000 next year, which is where we were pre-COVID, right? So we're returning back to a normal market. See where we were bumping at 5,000 to, you know, 5,500, 6,000, right? That's where we're headed. And by spring, I think I have a prediction on my board. I think we're going to be, I'm trying to remember the number I wrote, like 4,850 by the end of the year. Yeah, Jackie, unmute yourself.
Okay, so 2 points to that, right? So if we're gonna jump up in number of listings,
Yep.
will that be a good portion of that at this point where it wasn't before, people that live here already selling and buying?
So and again, I'm in this world right now. I have 4 contracts contingent upon somebody selling their house. I got 4 sellers to accept contingent
But
offer.
are they local?
They're all local.
They're all see, so even though that inventory is increasing, it's
But
sellers
so
that have been waiting, right? Like,
right, but here's what's happening is back in here, right? All these buyers, they didn't have anything to sell. So it was 1 demand, 0 supply. Right now, what's happening is you have the demand of a buyer, but it's adding to the supply one at the same time.
Right, so doesn't it
so
even,
You would think it evens out, but the problem is you have sellers who are not buyers at the same time. Right? I have a seller who's moving out of town, another seller moving out of town. So you have sellers that are adding to the supply side and not adding to the demand side. It's opposite of what happened here.
okay,
Like this was caused by no sellers, only buyers adding to now the 1-to-1 ratio. Yeah, people are trying to move locally, but it's creating a 1-to-1 situation. They're adding the supply when they add the demand. But we have a lot more people adding to the supply and not adding anything to the demand because they're renting, they don't need the second home, whatever the reason is, and that's what's causing this increase. And again, relative reference point, we were almost at 12,000 in the recession, right? So 4,000 still not recession level numbers by any means, especially since we have 50% more people living here now. But we're going to go back to this level here, and we're going to get there pretty quickly at this point. I think spring, summer next year, we're going to be back in this range here. And do we go past it? Right? Is it going to stop here or is it going to keep going? I think a lot of that depends on rates, the economy.
yeah, exactly, because.
And we don't know that stuff, but we are heading very quickly to this level. And
I'm thinking, because it's what I've had in my head for months now, is that more buyers are going to jump into the market when interest rates fall.
So and here's there are definitely some buyers sitting on the sidelines watching, right? And those buyers on the sidelines, they're watching, waiting for rates to come down, and some of them are waiting for prices to come down, right? So both. But the big question is that, what happened at Intel losing 15,000 jobs, is that going to spread in our economy? And if it spreads in the economy, we lose buyers, right? Because if you don't have a job, what are you not doing? You're not buying a house.
Right.
Right? So unemployment going from 4.1 to 4.3 in 1 month, right? You multiply that pace, that's another 2.4% in a year, right? Is unemployment 5 to 6% next year? And again, I'm not an economist. I'm not saying it is. But what if unemployment does hit 5 to 6%, right? Then you're losing some buyers that, and some people who lose their jobs, what do they have to do? They have to sell their house. I ran into 2 short sales, and I don't know the reason. Jan's saying she just did one. Look at the distress sales; they're out there, right? They're a low percentage, but they're out there and they're coming. And especially like if you look at VA, FHA buyers that bought within the last couple years with sideways movement, maybe down movement in prices, and they lose their job, they're in trouble, right? They don't have the ability to pay expenses to sell their house if they borrowed 100%. So just watch those distressed sales are out there, and they're going to continue to show up, I believe. So homes for sale, we're on this upward path, and let me zoom in a little bit here. So let me zoom out and make one point, right? When was the recession? Recession started, most people would say 2008, right? So here's 2008. When should we have seen a recession? Look at the inventory. Is this not crazy? Look at 2006. Flags should have been flying high all the way up. We peaked out on inventory before the recession, right? So it's crazy to think that nobody really saw the recession coming in the housing market. So I guess what I'm saying is watch the numbers constantly, and this upward trend that is a pretty quick pace, it's going to be a sign of kind of where everything's headed. Now, I wanted to break down this inventory number for you. Look at the new construction, right? So new construction, they got a little ahead of themselves. They kind of have it under control, but it is still growing. Look, 24% year over year. So there's more new construction available. The question is, are there enough buyers to absorb this new construction, which we'll find out. And then if we look at resales, to look at previously owned, 57%. right? So that's a significant growth in 1 year, and we're headed higher, right? This is headed higher. So there's a lot more resales out there. Let's go back to all. And then look at closed sales. So closed sales, 7.7%. Again, that's positive, you know, more sales than a year ago, but at a much lower level than we were, you know, in 2021. And what I like to do is do the rolling 12 months to get rid of the seasonality, right? Here we're all happy, 25,000 sales a year. Here we're not so happy with 16,000 and change. Right? So we're struggling to get off this bottom, right? Look at, coming up on a year ago, we've been struggling to get up off of 17,000 sales, right? We're plodding along here, and it's very flat. Look, 1.1% down in a 12-month rolling period. So we're struggling to push this higher. Now, what's really eye-opening is if you go here and you look at new construction. New construction doing great, right? Up 9.8%. They got off of 4,400, right? Here's the interest rate increase. They went from 4,800, way down to 4,400. Look at what they've done since the beginning of 2023. Straight up, right? 10% growth. Now here's all of us. Look at previously owned, right? So here we go. Off 5%.
That has a lot to do. I really think that that has a lot to do with the builders offering 4.5% commission, 4.5% interest, and down, 2-1 buy downs and doing all that stuff. I mean, they're really making it really attractive.
What have they done? They've lowered their price point, right? From
lowered their interest rates.
4.07, and they've lowered the interest rate for their buyers, not for other buyers, right? So that's why they're up 9.8% and resales are off 5%.
Yeah.
So resales are still trying to get off the bottom. And in Charleston, if you go back, 12,000 resales, if you go back, we got to go back to about 2015. And, at the peak of the market, before the recession, we were, in 2006. So again, resales are having more challenges because of their price point, because of the lack of buy downs and rates. So it's something to watch as we go forward. But also the new construction inventory is starting to build up. So, they have to watch themselves at the same time.
My big fear is, to me, it's very area driven because, Nexton, Cane Bay, those places, when they start selling, you're going to have hundreds in each neighborhood as resales when the normal timeline. So that's why,
There's 300 listings in Cane Bay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's already there.
I know, but it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. I don't want to do an open house up there. It just doesn't make sense to me. So
here's new listings, right? So we were listing 26,000 in 2021. We went down to 20,000. Now we're going back up. But I think we're going back up partially because of the need of sellers to sell, right? There's needs out there. So that is driving this higher, up 10% year over year. And if you look at, here's new construction. So they're up 14%. So that's what I'm saying is new construction, they got to maybe rein in a little bit. They might be overbuilding a little bit. And then resales, because when you look at resales are up 9.8%. So new construction is putting more on the market than even resales at this point. So that's what I'm saying is they might need to watch how many they're bringing up out of the ground. Pending sales, flat, right? And this is rolling 12 months, but it's 0.6%, very flat, from 25,000 to 17,000. We're trying to get up off this bottom that we're forming. Pending sales, if you look at new construction, they're up 8.6%, right? So they're up, which means resales is down, right? So we're off 2.4%, but again, just sitting at a really low number, trying to get off this bottom. Dollar volume. So dollar volume is up. this is, sorry, let me go back, new construction. I mean, all construction. So if you look
So,
at all.
Antoine,
Yep,
I apologize.
you're
So
fine.
tell me, what do you think is going to happen with pricing? Because that's the interesting thing, right? So based
Yeah.
on the numbers, pricing is not going down, even
I
though
mean,
inventory is going up.
I can tell you, I have two and again, that's why pricing is so specific, right? I got two properties, one that's closing next week. And this is in my neighborhood. I've worked for a long time, Hamlin Plantation, right? So I listed this probably 75 days ago now. And the comp was 565, right? And the active was 565. There was one closed sale at 560, I think it was 566, and one at active at 565. So before we listed, I went and looked at the showings, and you guys need to learn how to do this. Look at the back end of showing time in the reports. And if you use their search tool, in fact, I'll do this at the end of this call, you got to see what's happening with the active listings. And if they're not getting showings, it's a clear indication they're overpriced, right? So you can't list with them if they're not getting any action. And I'll show you at the end of this. But my point is, I looked at the active and I'm like, oh no, they just listed 2 weeks ago. They've only had 2 showings in 2 weeks at a very affordable price point for Mount Pleasant. So yeah, our comp is 566, but the 565 active, nothing is happening. So I talked to my sellers and said, uh-oh, we can't list at 565 because nothing's happening. So we list, and I'm like, they're about to come down to 550, right? But they're a direct competition. So we listed at 535.
Oh, perfect. And then active,
We,
is that one?
but watch this, we listed at 535. So we're 30 grand below them. And we're like, okay, we should be good. My first 8 days, I had 1 showing.
Wait, what
30
property is
comp?
in Hamlin, in your neighborhood?
Yep, 30 grand below a comp, 30 grand below the active. So you know what we did? We changed it to 525 and we got it
Wow.
under contract at full price. But we only had 3 showings. We had 1 offer. So we were 40 grand below the comp and 40 grand below the active. And we're closing next week, knock on wood. And the active is still at 565 and it's still
Yeah.
not under contract. Right? So
I mean,
so
How long
it's-
did it take to pull the contract?
well, once we changed it,
Once you dropped it to that price.
just a few days,
Okay, perfect.
2 or 3 days, we had 3 showings, 1 person interested, and boom, we made it happen. But I was proactive enough to not just believe the comp and believe the active. I looked at the showings. I'm like, uh-oh, they're going to change their price, right? The motivated sellers will change their price.
Yeah.
Now, I got another one. Everybody know where the bridge is at 7 Lakes is? Maybe not. It's out in Hugie, right? So when there was 900 for sale in all of Charleston, where did you buy? You bought in Hugie, right? Because there was 900 for sale. And it was a brand new house on a 3/4 acre lot. It was all good, right? Now that there's 4,000 for sale, where do you not buy?
Hugie.
Hugie.
How many are listed out there?
There's, so, and again, it's a numbers game. You ready for this? There's 8 listings out there. It's not a huge neighborhood. It's not a tiny neighborhood, but it's not a huge neighborhood. There's 8 active listings. So let's do some math. And you need to do these on your listings, right? Let's do some math. 8 active listings. There's been 5 sales in 12 months, right? So quick math on months of inventory. That's 19 months of inventory. 19 months of inventory is recession level numbers. We were at 17 months in Charleston. So the bridges at 7 Lakes is in a recession in their little neighborhood, right? There's 8 for sale. We listed, I'm going to say we listed 90 days ago. Beautiful house, well kept. They're great sellers. They listen to me. So there was one that's in the spring. There's one that sold for $880, and these are D.R. Horton houses. So, right, they're very comparable to each other. It was the same floor plan that closed at $880. And back then I was like, okay, well, that's our comp. Let's not push the market. Let's just match the market. So we listed at $875. Listed at $875. one showing in 30 days. Right? More come on the market. And I'm like, uh-oh. We went to 850, one showing in 30 days. I'm like, uh-oh, more come on the market. We went to 825. We did a 7-home open house and we had about 2 people in there between 7 agents. Right? And I'm like, uh-oh. So then this past Monday after the open house, what did we do? We changed to 799. Right? How many showings have I had at 799?
5.
0.
Mm.
Right? So I looked on the back end of showing time. There has, on those 8 listings, right? So 8 active listings since July 14th. Guess how many showings? On total on all 8?
10.
1.
Ah,
1 showing on 8 listings in about 18 days. So does that feel like recession,
Yes.
Jan? That feels like the recession, Gene,
But
right? It feels like the recession.
yeah, I mean, I
For that
don't,
neighborhood.
it's not, see, the problem is, like, I sold a house in UG, Toll Brothers, whatever, it was, they already went under contract before I met them and all that, there was a referral, but whatever. But the problem, that's not, in my estimation, it's not a recession. The problem is that when people get desperate and buy things in a market because they just want to buy something, and it doesn't matter where they go, that's a resale value situation. That's a future situation. Like,
But what is a recession? Is when you move backwards, right? I have an 880 comp. Now I'm at 799. That is moving backwards a lot. That's
yeah,
a 10% drop. And we
Yeah.
still can't get it showing. That is the definition of, again, the months of supply,
yeah,
right? If we look at months of supply, let's go back to my favorite time in this business. Here we are, 16 months of inventory. What did I say that Bridges is? 19 months of inventory. We
Yeah.
are in a recession in the Bridges at 7 Lakes. I'm not saying the market as a whole.
yeah,
I'm saying that neighborhood, you got 8 for sale. You got 1 buyer every 60 days, right? Do the math. 1 buyer every 60 days. We have 8 sellers, right? So the best one of the 8 is the one that's going to sell. And I'm trying to price my sellers as the best one of the 8,
yeah,
and it's driving the prices down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is where we're at in that neighborhood. And again, look at every neighborhood's different, right? I'm not saying that as a whole. I'm saying that specific neighborhood, that's what's happening internally there. And the
Yeah.
motivated sellers will drop their price to get their sale. So you guys, everybody needs to look at that neighborhood. We're talking about Cane Bay, right? And it's like, we can go, like, let's do this. You can come into here. Let's do Cane Bay, right? So here's Cane Bay, right? So it started in 2006. So that's why it starts here, but let's zoom in a little bit. So Cane Bay, now Cane Bay is not Bridges at 7 Lakes, right? It's 2.9 months of inventory. Right, but there are a lot. Look at homes for sale. Oh, we've come down from, we were at 330. There were 330 homes in one neighborhood for sale.
Can you do Nexton?
So yeah, I'll do next in a second.
Yeah.
So 330 homes for sale. And
that's more than all of Mount Pleasant.
yeah, that's more than all of Mount Pleasant in one neighborhood. And think about it for a second. They had a lot under contract. So I'm going to move the pictures out of the way real quick. Hold on. So look at the pending sales. So in the same month, there were 115 pending.
Yeah.
So again, that is a lot of action in one neighborhood. I mean, there's 450 signs in that neighborhood. 450 signs. So the closed sales, I mean, they're closing about 77 a month. I mean, that's just crazy when you think about it. 77 closed sales a month, but they were closing upward of 170, in June of 2022. So again, there's competition. I mean, they got up to 3.9 months, right? So that was growing pretty quickly from 0.8. But the last few months, it has definitely like improved the absorption. And I don't know if that is the look at sales price, right? So sales price 6.8% higher, but off of where it was, right? It went crazy in the spring of 2022. You know, it jumped up to 448 and now we're sitting about 420.
Yeah.
So, you know, so any neighborhood that you want to work, like if we put in Nexton here, right? So here's Nexton, there are homes for sale. We got only 82.
Oh, wow, that's not bad.
Right? So,
Okay.
and months of supply,
That's not bad.
1.8.
That's nothing. Okay, never
So
mind.
it's, but we grew from 0.6,
Yeah.
you know, to here. But again, every neighborhood's different. I mean, think
Yeah.
about it, 1.8, Bridges at Seven Lakes is 10 times this. So completely different markets, the same time, same city. So you have to look at your specific, you know,
Right.
listing.
Yeah.
So
Anton, how did you, this is just for somebody who's not great at math. How did you, like when you did Bridges at Seven Lakes
Yep.
and so there were 8 active listings?
Yep.
If you did it on here, would it have shown you 19 months of inventory?
So all I did was I looked at how many, because when you have a name, I mean, Cane Bay has so many homes for sale. That's a big sample size.
Right.
Bridge is a very small sample size. So don't look at like, oh, well, there are no sales last month. You know, we have 8 for sale. Like I looked at 12 months, right? So just to be easy, let's say there's 6 sales in 12 months. So there's 1 buyer every 2 months in there.
Right.
If you have 8 for sale, right? If you have 8 for sale, it's going to take 16 months to sell all of those.
Got it.
Right?
Okay.
You're simply, you know, dividing how many are for sale divided by how many sell per month. Right? So there's 8 for sale and there's half a sale a month. So it's, you know, right, just with that math, it's 16 months of inventory. And it's because these sellers think, oh, well, there's 8 of us for sale. We're all going to sell this month. I'm like, no. Like a 12-month run, there's 1 buyer every 60 days. One of you is going to sell in the next 60 days. You're not all going to sell this month.
Yeah.
And you have to, and think about it. If you have 8 choices that are all similar, you have to stand out. Condition and you know, the way it's staged and price, right? So all of that has to be the best. And that's, you know, again, working in, you know, when this is kind of where the market was at back here. So back in these, whoops, I guess I'm in Nexton. Hold on a second. So back here, I was carrying myself, just me, with an assistant. I had 55 listings. Just me. And that's crazy. And it was crazy. So 55 listings, but at 17 months of inventory, I only sold 3 or 4 a month. So you know what my conversation was every Monday? I had to talk to 52 sellers of why they didn't sell that week.
Yeah.
Right? Now, right here, I had 55 under contract at one time. So I went from 55 under contract to 55 for sale. And it looks just like this chart, right? You can't override this as an agent, right? So I'm not saying I'm going to go up to 55. I'll quit before I do that again. But you're having to carry more inventory, right? As months of inventory goes up, if you want to make so many sales, you have to carry more inventory to make those sales. So again, and you got to work, you have to work a lot more people to make deals happen, buyers and sellers. So because, you know, buyers here lately, they're taking their sweet time and being really picky.
Yeah.
That's not going to change, right? That's not going to change. So I wanted, you know, to finish today, I wanted to show everybody how you can go in the back end of showing time. And I know some of you might know this, but so if I go into showing time here, of course, it's going to make me log back in. And my number is 8302. What's your number?
7995.
Right? See, Jan's lower than mine.
I'm 28002.
There you go. So there's 20,000 agents between me and you. 20,000 in Charleston.
Oh my God.
So go to reports here. And if you go to target market analysis. So if I go to target, I'll slow down here. So all your reports, you can look at all this stuff, but for today, we're going to focus on one thing. We're going to look at target market analysis. So if I click on this, right? So this is how I'm going to take my Hamlin example, right? So there's an active listing in Hamlin. Let's say I'm going to list another townhome in there. There's an active listing at 565. And before I go talk to my sellers, I'm like, all right, I need to know how much action they're getting before I go, overpromise to my sellers how many showings they're going to get. So what you can do is, if you're looking at a specific listing, narrow down the price point. So it's 565. I'm going to do 550 to 600, right?
You
And
put 5.
it makes you
It
change.
says 5. You got to
Whoop.
change it. Boo boo. There you go.
Says 600. And then you have to put a value range in here. So, again, it's going to let me do 5,000 increments. I'll just do 10,000. And then I'm going to do Hamlin Plantation.
Can you do more than one subdivision at once?
I've never tried that. Let's see here.
I was just curious, like if you,
I guess it does. It's going to
Okay.
let me choose to.
Cool.
But I'm always more interested. I'm going to see a specific house. Like,
Right.
what's the action on this house? So Hamlin Plantation, there's only one listing in there that's 565. So I know when I do the search, and here's, you can control your dates, right? So I'm going to look for 30 days. Like, how much traffic have they had in 30 days? So when I hit submit, it's going to pop up. It's like, okay, they've had 5 showings in 30 days. And I know it's that house, right? I know it's that townhouse because it's the only one active, right? So I can break it down. Now, again, now I'm like, okay, that's a month, right? So that's a showing every 6 days. So when you go to your seller and they think 10 people are going to show up at their house the first weekend, that's not what's going to happen. Now, sure, if they priced at 450, they'd have 10 people there. But if they're pricing it similar, they're going to get 1 showing per week. Is 1 showing per week really going to sell a house? Probably not, right? So that's showing to me they're still too high, right? They're not getting enough traffic to get the offers. Now, again, if you can use this tool too. Let's go to Cane Bay and have some fun. So if we do 350 to 400 and we do Cane Bay.
And I will say too, that one, this is gold. So thank you for this, Anton, as you're going through. But in Cane Bay, you really have to get subsection specific.
Yep.
Because the lakes, it's going to give you a different
Old Rice
the
Retreat's
difference-
not gonna be the shop option.
right,
Well,
absolutely.
And again, here's the challenge is these are the only fields I can sort by, right?
Okay.
So these are your options. So to dive down to that level, it's tricky because it doesn't really give you subsection as an option. All it gives you is subdivision. Now you
For
can mess with
property type, does it allow you to do single family attached versus detached?
Yep. So it'll
Okay.
let you do detached, attached.
I wonder if you could
Whoops.
ask MLS to add that with these
I
larger
think
neighborhoods.
it's going to be showing time we have to go to.
Okay,
I mean, I think it's a good comment for them. If they can add more fields would be nice.
yeah. We can see what
um,
that's showing.
So Cane Bay, single family detached, 350, 400. Now this is more kind of, it'll show you, it's like, oh, well, here you go. In a month, right? Remember we just did a month.
Right, there's your,
So you can see, okay, well, how many showings each price point is getting, but almost more important. So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of homes for sale and a lot of action, but if you scroll down, you can see how many showings per listing, right? So shows per listing over that time period, it'll show you, here's the monthly average for all the listings, but here's per listing. So
It's
if you're
interesting. The higher price ones got more showings. That's interesting.
and it could simply be a really nice house that got a ton of traffic, right?
Yeah.
But overall, this price point, you're getting about a showing a week, right? Because this is per month, remember, shows per listing per month, right? So you're getting about a showing a week. So your expectation going into that listing, and I always said this, it's like, well, a showing per week is average. We need to be above average. Like we need to try to get 2 showings a week. Now, granted, the new listings might get 3 or 4, and then it quickly goes down to 1.
Hmm.
So, new listings will certainly get more than or they should be getting more than the average if you're pricing it correctly.
Right.
But play around with this report. So it's the last one, and literally, you might even be able to dive down, because see, it lets you break down division price points. So if we did 350 to 375, you can only go down to 5,000 price point. So if I do this, you might start like, there's a house here or a couple of houses that are really rocking it, right? So now I could go back, what's between 370 and 375 in Cane Bay? Because that price point has had a ton of activity. And if there's, so you can kind of see there's probably a couple really good listings in here. They're getting above the shows per listing, but there's also probably a few listings in that price point. So it's a great way. And again, Cane Bay is tricky because there's so many listings. But if you're in a neighborhood that only has 1 or 2, you literally can put this search criteria narrow enough and see what that specific listing is getting for showing activity.
Will it let you, this is silly, but this is only for active listings, or will it also do under contract listings?
So I think it's just showing anything that, so let's say a contract, you remember this is July 3rd to August 2nd. Let's say a house went under contract July 15th. It's showing any listing that had a showing. So some of these at the end of this are under contract.
It'd be nice to see if you could do the ones that had closed.
Yeah, you can't, well, no, because it's basically grouping anything that had a
Yeah.
showing. This is all,
Okay.
remember, this is offered by our MLS, but this is managed by Showing Time.
Right,
So
right.
if you have a listing that does not use Showing Time, it's not showing up on here, right? So this is only report through Showing Time. So, cities, zip codes, school districts, areas, really the only thing I ever really use is, if it's attached or detached and the subdivision, and try to narrow down as much as you can. And so I'll do some work while I'm on the conference call. So here, July 14th, let's go to my favorite neighborhood at the moment. This is 7, right? So here's July 14th to August 2nd, right? And this is, they have more, there's houses from 600 to 1 million in there, right? And it's not gonna, it won't break it down. See, it gives me this error. It won't do 5,000 increments for that big of a range. So you can just do, maybe let me do 25,000. So there's 8 listings in there. You ready? Let's see. Oh, there's another showing.
Hey.
So this was sitting here. So we've had 2 showings on 8 listings since July 14th.
Since 2 weeks. Yeah.
So
So
what kind of conversations, I mean, obviously this is a completely different example because it made sense at the time for the comps that you did. And also so many of these sellers are like, well, I'm looking at these, no matter what you show me, it makes sense for it to be here. So when they don't want to drop it, $75,000, obviously y'all did it in increments, but like, what kind of conversations are you having with sellers that are like, well, we don't want to, kick ourselves in the butt and not list high enough, but you're also like, well, we all know that wouldn't you rather generate more interest, and it needs to be priced aggressively.
So again, it's a combination of, when you're going to list, look at the days on market for the specific house that you're listing, the price point, the area. Is it typically 10 days on the market, right? And remember, no matter what area you're in, 10 showings is a good kind of rule of thumb. And in 10 days, if you go past 10 days and your average is days on market is 10, then that's a problem. If you're going past 10 showings and you got all no's, that's a problem. If you go past 10 days and you have 0 showings like me, that's a problem, right? So it's a matter of how many showings should they be getting. Are they getting a lot of people in there and a lot of no's? That's a problem equally. right? Because I mean, the market in the end decides the price,
Right.
right? And if you get 10 people in a house and they all said no thanks, that's definitely a sign. Because remember, if you go to Market Monitor, right,
Mhm.
and you look at shows per listing, or sorry,
Right.
shows depending, right? We've actually gone down, but 8 to 10, that's saying, hey, the median listing, once it gets to 8 to 10 showings, it's under contract. So if you go 8 to 10 and you have all no's, that's the market saying it's priced too high.
So what's interesting though is that a lot of maybe it was just the way I was looking at it the other day, but a lot of the median shows to pending I've seen shows per listing that are less than shows to pending. Like for example,
Well, the shows per listing, I mean, we went through the roof right here, right?
right, because a lot of people were
Why
coming
did we go
in.
so high?
Because there was very few homes and people were trying to see it as
Exactly.
quickly as possible.
There was nothing for sale, so everybody would run and look at it. Now that you have more options, we're down to 4.6, right? So that shows per listing per month. So,
Okay,
right? So that is basically you're getting one per week. The whole market as a whole. And let's go look at Cane Bay again, right? So if we look at Cane Bay, where are they at? They're at 3.8, right? So they're close to one per week. Right? So it's a good measuring tool when you're going to talk to your sellers about, because some sellers think, oh, why aren't 8 people in my house the first 2 days?
right.
Right? Where is everybody? It's like, well, no, one per week is the pace.
So I guess my question is, how do you explain the difference between the shows per listing and shows to pending? Aren't they both monthly?
No,
Or
so
the shows to pending
the
total?
shows per listing are the number of showings that have been scheduled on the average listing. So one per week. The shows per pending means, hey, they went through 9 showings before they got a contract.
Right,
They're different numbers, right?
right,
So for July of 2024, in Cane Bay, you had to get to 9 showings as
got
as a median to go into contract. So they're looking at different numbers. So
Okay.
one showing per week, but you might need to get 9 people in there to go under contract. Now,
okay,
right. So
Yeah.
this is how many people visited before you went under contract. Now, remember, the first 2 weeks, you're gonna get most of your showings, unless you change the price again.
Right.
So it might not be 1, you might get 3 or 4 the first week, and that's great. But then if you get 1 or 2 the next week and then 1 the next week, that shows like, okay, whoops, like now the market is we're stale on the market.
right.
Okay, so I just looked up the neighborhood. So do you think the fact that everyone in this neighborhood is trying to make $300,000 in 3 years? I mean, because
Who's not doing that in Charleston though?
No, I understand trying
Everybody's
to.
doing that in
No,
Charleston.
I get that. And I gotta tell, I mean, as I said, I was in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, where homes, this one neighborhood, they were $250,000 homes. And when the market went crazy, 2007, 2008, whatever, they were getting, $500,000-$600,000. And I do understand, and I personally made $130,000 on a sale of my house when I bought it in 2021 and sold it in 2023. I mean, I get it. I made 30% or whatever it is. But part of it is also, and I understand that the prices have gone down from the height of the market, but they haven't gone down from when they bought these properties. So a lot of people, besides the fact that when they bought these homes, the interest rates were, 3%, 4%. I mean, I don't think it's like the sky is falling as much as they'd like to think, because part of my business has always been, you paid $600,000 for this house. People look on Zillow and they see that you paid $600,000 for this house. What is your if your motivation is 9 or 10?
Yeah, but I don't think that's really playing. What's happening is at 800,000, what options do buyers have that are active, right?
Right.
And now we have a lot of options in Mount
Right.
Pleasant, right?
Yes.
So the comps to me, and that's like, my Hamlin place. I could have listed at 565. I had a comp right there at the same time,
Right.
but it's the options that a buyer has and what their competition is. If there's
Right.
no other buyers, they're going to control the market. And that's what's happening is the bridges
Right.
doesn't have the buyers, so.
Yeah.
You know, the buyers aren't saying, oh, well, $800,000 is overpriced. They're not showing up, right? They're not even coming. So it's not like they're looking and it's like, oh, well, you paid 600 for it. They're not even coming in the door. And
Right.
it's because there's so many options out there.
Right. And that's what I always tell, like, you tell people, it's like, we're in Charleston. The closer you get to Charleston, the more valuable the property is really, unless you want to be on a lake or you want to be. So if you're going farther and farther out because you want a nicer house for less money, that's the first that's going to go when
Right.
people can buy the houses closer. My thing is, I live in Concord, West of Ashley. I'm 10 minutes to downtown. My daughter lives in Mira Vista. She's 10 minutes to downtown. So when I'm going to panic is when the places in my neighborhood don't sell quickly. You know what I mean? Because
Correct.
these are the desirable neighborhoods. These are the desirable places you want to be close to downtown. So
Right,
I mean,
right.
know,
Well, and that's what I opened with is that,
Yeah.
people bought in Hughie when there was nothing for sale in Mount
Right,
Pleasant. Now
right.
that there's a lot for sale in Mount Pleasant, they're not buying in
Yes.
Hughie. So
which for buyers is great. For sellers,
right.
not so much.
And I mean, it's a beautiful house. There's nothing wrong with the house. It's the neighborhood.
Right.
So,
So,
well, I hope
thank-
this was all useful for
Thank
everybody.
you.
Yes,
And-
thank you so
and,
much.
Always,
Play
very much
around
so.
play around with showing time with your listings. Trust me, it's a great tool to have a conversation with. So,
Well, thank you for doing this again.
all right, we'll talk soon.
Yes, bye.